Senator, you've been quoting the Alamo in your speeches recently, saying victory or death. Does that mean for you the Texas primary is win or go home?
Well, listen, Texans understand exactly what the Alamo means. It's the fighting spirit that when this country is under assault, when this country is facing the stagnation of 7 years of the Obama-Clinton economy, the assault on our civil liberties, that we've got to stand and fight. And I am confident we're going to see a good night in Texas and all across Super Tuesday.
What are the stakes for you on Super Tuesday?
I think Super Tuesday is the most important day of this entire primary election. It is the most delegates awarded in a single night will be awarded on Super Tuesday. And I think we are positioned to have a very good night on Super Tuesday. You know, about 65% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton. And we are the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump, and we're the only candidate that can beat Donald Trump. If you look at the Super Tuesday states, we are running neck and neck with Donald in states all across Super Tuesday. And so it is my hope that all of the Republicans who recognize that nominating a candidate who agrees with Hillary Clinton on a host of issues, who has a very similar record, is not the path to victory. And if we come together, if conservatives stand together, we're going to have a great night on Tuesday.
If they don't, is he unstoppable?
Look, there is no doubt that if Donald steamrolls through Super Tuesday, wins everywhere with big margins, that he may well be unstoppable. I don't think that'll happen. But I think if you're at home and you don't want Donald Trump to be the Republican nominee, then the only candidate who can beat Donald is our campaign. And so I would encourage, even if you like another candidate, stand with us if you don't want Donald to be the nominee, because if and when we stop him on Super Tuesday, that's how we end up beating Donald and nominating a proven conservative, which is what it's going to take to beat Hillary.
What did you make of Chris Christie endorsing Donald Trump?
Oh, listen, I don't think that was a big surprise. I think it was a blow to the Rubio campaign. But at the end of the day, the Washington establishment is going to go where they're going to go. This really in Super Tuesday is a battle to determine where conservatives go. And you know, I think the debate this week was really some powerful moments of clarity. We saw that Donald Trump substantively has the same issues on issue after issue as Hillary Clinton. He agreed with Hillary Clinton on Libya, toppling the government in Libya. That led directly to Benghazi, led to handing that country over to radical Islamic terrorism. He agreed with Hillary Clinton supporting John Kerry. He agreed with Hillary Clinton on being, quote, neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. I'll tell you, as president, I'm not going to be neutral. America will stand unapologetically with Israel. And then on domestic policy, Donald Trump agreed with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on the Wall Street bailout, the TARP bailout of big banks. I think the government ought to be standing with Main Street, with working men and women. And then you put on top of that the ethical issues, whether it is refusing to release his taxes. And that's a real problem.
Why is that a problem? Why is it a problem if he doesn't release his taxes?
Well, he said in the debate, he said, gosh, I'm being audited for 2 years. Then he said 3 years. Then he said maybe 5 years. Listen, if there's a problem in his taxes, the voters have a right to know, because come September, October, the general election, folks in the media are going to make a heyday about any problems in his taxes. And I think primary voters have a right to know. And his excuse that he's being audited, look, that makes it even more important for him to release his taxes so the voters can see if there is, you know, Mitt Romney suggested there could be a bombshell there. I don't know if there is or not, but Donald is hiding them from the voters, and I think he owes candor to the voters.
Speaking of candor, he said some pretty bracing things about you, and you say you still like him, and you say, how can that be the case?
Oh, listen, Donald is a charming person. I mean, he can be fun. He can make you laugh.
He's not saying charming things about you.
But he can turn on you. I mean, just overnight, he can turn on you and get nasty and personal and vicious. But listen, I treat him as an entertainer. I laugh it off. It's like going to the circus and seeing the acrobats and the dancing bears. You know, he's willing to say things that are patently false. So, for example, at the debate this week, he backed off of his health care position for 20 years. For 20 years, he has agreed with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders on socialized medicine, saying Obamacare doesn't go far enough. He wants the government to pay for everyone's health care and to control it. And, you know, he and I had a back and forth where I asked him, is it true or false that he said the government should pay for everyone's health care? He said it's false. Listen, within minutes, we put out a video just contrasting what he said there with video of him just a few months earlier saying exactly the opposite. And what I think the debate this week did is gave real clarity to the voters that to beat Hillary, we need a consistent conservative, someone who has stood for free market principles, who has stood for the Constitution, and critically, who stood for the working men and women of this country. You know, you look at, we talked a lot about Donald's record on immigration. I mean, there's irony that he's made the center of his entire campaign immigration, given that he faced a $1 million court judgment for being part of a conspiracy to hire illegal aliens, given that just this week news broke that he is hiring foreign workers at his fancy hotel in Florida. And he claims, he did an interview after the debate where he said, well, gosh, you can't find Americans to do these jobs, to be waiters or waitresses or bellhops. I mean, John, what ridiculous nonsense. The New York Times reported roughly 300 Americans applied for those jobs. He only hired 17. Instead, he brought in foreign workers because they're captive workers, because you can pay them less because they can't leave. And I think the working men and women are getting hammered right now. They want someone they can trust to stand with them. And part of the reason so many conservatives are uniting behind our campaign is I'm the only one who led the battle against amnesty, has led the battle to secure the borders, has led the battle for the working men and women of this country.
Let me ask you a question about the borders and your position on immigration, particularly with respect to undocumented workers. Bill O'Reilly presented you with a hypothetical about somebody who'd overstayed their visa, and he said President Cruz is going to send the feds to his house, take him out, and put him on a plane. And you said, you better believe it. But in an interview with Jake Tapper, given a similar scenario, you said, we don't have a system that knocks on doors of every person in America. So it seemed in one case you were not knocking on the doors and getting them, and in others you are.
No, it's the difference. It's how law enforcement operates. We don't have stormtroopers that just knock on the door of every American citizen. We don't do that for any crime. But when we have evidence that a particular person has committed a crime, we send law enforcement to apprehend them. And the specific question was visa overstays. John, right now, current federal law requires a biometric exit-entry system when you come in on a visa. And the Obama administration is just ignoring federal law. 40% of illegal immigration is not people who cross the borders illegally. It's people who come legally on a visa and never leave. If we have a biometric exit-entry system, we know if John Dickerson comes in for 6 months and hasn't left, we know on the day after 6 months, okay, John has exceeded his visa. And with that exit-entry system, we can then send ICE, the law enforcement agents that exist, to go and get John and say, okay, you're here illegally now. That's how law enforcement operates.
So if you knew they were illegal, you would go after them. But you wouldn't go to any random house just searching for illegals.
We have never had a dragnet knocking on every home in America searching for potential criminals. But when you have evidence that someone has committed a crime, a particular person, you enforce the law. That's how law enforcement works.
Do you think we'd come to a situation where those people who are unhappy with the undocumented workers here would sort of engage in if you see something, say something? In other words, if you knew, if I as a private citizen, when you're president, if I'm a private citizen, should I report somebody I know who's overstayed?
Listen, this problem will solve itself. If anyone that wants to see how to address it, go to my website. It's tedcruz.org. We have an 11-page, very detailed immigration plan. We'll build a wall. We'll triple the Border Patrol. We'll put in place strong E-Verify at the workplace. We will end sanctuary cities by cutting off federal taxpayer funds. We will end welfare for those here illegally, and we'll enforce the law. And, I mentioned in the debate, there was an article recently in the Wall Street Journal about the impacts in the state of Arizona. Remember, a few years ago, they passed some very tough laws on illegal immigration, and people all over the country attacked them for doing so. Well, these laws had their intended effect. Many of the illegal immigrants left Arizona, and what the Wall Street Journal reported is the effect of that is Arizona now spends hundreds of millions of dollars less of taxpayer money on prisons, on health care, on education. That means that money's there for the citizens of Arizona. But on top of that, unemployment among Arizona citizens has gone down and wages are going up. If you're a construction worker, if you're a carpenter, if you're a truck driver, those are the people I'm fighting for. Their wages are going up. And the problem is, far too many politicians in Washington, both the politicians who drafted the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, like Marco Rubio, and the politicians who funded the Gang of Eight. Donald Trump gave over $50,000 to the members of the Gang of Eight, 5 of those 8 members. Both of them are undermining the working men and women of this country. As president, every day I'm going to be fighting to raise wages and raise jobs, increase jobs for the hardworking people in this country that have gotten left behind under the Obama-Clinton economy.
We're running out of time. The last question for you. You don't want to see the president's nominee for the Supreme Court have a hearing. If you're not in a position to name the next Supreme Court nominee as president, would you want the job?
That is not a job I'm interested in. The job I'm interested in is appointing 3, 4, 5 Supreme Court justices, is defending the Constitution. It is on day one, I will rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action taken by the president. And given the damage Barack Obama has done to the Constitution, to the rule of law, we need a president who is faithful and vigorous defending the Constitution. That's what I'll do as president.
All right, Senator Cruz, thanks so much.
Thank you, John.